Good morning. I'm coming to you barely awake. I'm going to shower and wash my hair, and then I'm going to sit down with y'all and chat about turning 25 while I do my makeup. I have a raging headache, so hopefully I feel better by then. So it has been many hours since that first clip. I just started doing stuff. So before I get into the next part of this video, I just want to have a disclaimer and say that I am going to be mentioning depression and mentioning briefly suicide. I just want to put that out there so that if folks aren't in the right headspace, want to tune out, they can. I have a co-host like always. And I also want to include that to say, if you know me, if we are related, that's not meant to be a cause for concern. It's just something to talk about. So with that out the way, hey, it looks like I'm wearing a work suit. I'm not. So for today's video, I wanted to just talk about a couple of things that I've been thinking about since this month. I'm turning 25 on February 21st, and I feel like there have been a lot of changes that have happened for me, both internally and externally, since turning 24. And I've just been reflecting on that. In this past year, it's probably the first time in my life that I have not wanted to be older. I have 5 older siblings, and the age differences range between 4 and 16 years. And so I'm sure there are a variety of reasons as to why I've always had this desire to be older than however old I was at the time. But I think that that's a big one, is just that some of the people closest to me, are significantly older than I am. In addition to always wanting to be older, I've always had this sort of fascination with defining myself for myself. A kind of personal ontology, right? This constant questioning about who I am, what am I doing right now, what do I want to be like? And so to me, aging is part of that, because I'm getting older, and am I progressing? And I mean older in the truest sense, like I am adding years onto my age, not that I think 25 is old in any kind of way. That said, I think upon turning 24 last year, I was kind of able to look around myself and realize that a lot of the boxes that I felt like I had to have checked, I had done. I know I talk a lot about, or not even talk about, but just like mention college very often in my videos, and that's because like arguably I changed the most in that span of time, and also because I think this is now my almost third year being out of school. I feel like the years out of college have each been dramatically different from the next. And I do feel that slowing down. You know, I think that this will probably be the last year that I'm kind of still thinking about myself in terms of when I graduated from college. Now, that said, after I graduated, there were set boxes that I wanted to check, right? I wanted to move away from home very badly. That was something that was very important to me. You know, I wanted to have my own car. I wanted to work full time. Just other different stuff. I wanted to have my first book written by the time I was 26. You know, so I bring that up because basically right out of school and like in the crux of my early 20s, I just was piling on responsibility after responsibility. And I feel like being 24, I finally looked around and thought to myself, why did I do this? Why did I pile on all of these responsibilities? Because I felt like I had to, you know? So I was living away from home, living out of my living out of my family's house or away from my family. I was working full time. I was in this long-term relationship, had pets. For the most part, I'm pretty financially independent. And it just started to kind of dawn on me, like, okay, and for what, you know? Oh my God. This is like the first video where I've actually taken notes. So I'm desperate to put my glasses back on so that I can read those notes.
Ooh, you might need some chapstick. I don't actually know the last time that I used chapstick. Like for real. Like a tube of chapstick.
Okay. Whew. Fast. So, like I was saying, I feel like I just kept piling on these responsibilities, and it wasn't until last year that I really thought to myself, why am I doing this and who am I doing this for? And in the year since then, okay, not bad. In the year since then, I feel like also a lot of those boxes that beforehand were so important to me to just have. Like, I just want to be in a serious relationship. I just want to work full time. I want to be financially independent. I had to go back and kind of, if not at the bare minimum, really question why do I actually want this? Then in the fullest form, deal with not having those things. And so because a lot of changes happened last year, towards the end of it, and I mentioned this in my first YouTube video, you know, I really felt myself changing. But I thought that would be more of a passive internal process going into this year. And so what I mean by that is I felt like, you know, if I just meditate or just really spend time alone, then those changes will somehow come to the surface. And what's proved to be happening instead in 2020 is what feels like my life just completely and utterly spiraling. And spiraling in terms of like, I've felt like in the past couple weeks, because really this year is not even that old, that as soon as I say I want this thing to happen, the opposite does, you know, or so many of the things that made me feel good about myself at 23 or 24, like, look at me, I'm kicking ass on my own, are making me like totally miserable now, you know? And so when I say that I've had to reflect on those boxes that I made for myself, for example, when I was in college, my last semester of college, you know, the only full-time job offer that I had gotten, and again, that was something that was really important to me, getting that full-time job offer, the only one that I had gotten was in North Carolina, and my family is from New York. I'm born and raised in the suburbs, not from the city. Okay, I'm not out here fronting or anything, but so that means it was more important to me to be able to say, like, look at me, I can do this, and move almost 1,000 miles away, than it was to have pause and think, why am I doing this? What is important? So I feel like with all of the boxes that I named and other ones, it's just, as soon as I put an idea into action, it just explodes on itself. And the message that I keep getting over and over again, I thought it was that, okay, I'm just changing as a person and, you know, I need to accept myself better. But really, I think what that message is that I've been resisting is that things fall apart and it isn't up to us how they do. And so a couple of days ago, weeks ago at this point, I had my friend Lydia do a card reading for me. And if you want to know more about the services that Lydia offers and kind of what their style of card reading is and things like that, I actually did an interview with them not too long ago, so I'll link that in the description box, so I'm not taking up too much time, but definitely check out Lydia's work. And so what came up in that card reading was that and I have to read this just while I'm looking down, but that I'm subconsciously trying to prepare for things that are out of my control. So I'm using mental energy that could be better served elsewhere, trying to just have a death grip, which is something that I need to work on. And in my first video, I did say, like, I really had to interrogate myself in the last year or so about bad habits. And like I said, it's not just bad habits like, oh, I don't like taking out the trash, I need to do that, which I did in preparation for this video because there's a pile of recycling right there. So but it's one of the things that I really need to work on and get comfortable with, is just letting go of this death grip of life. And then also, very closely related to that, something that came up was that being controlling doesn't actually do anything. Like, if anything, it causes more anxiety because you're focusing on things that are yet to happen in the future, and you're not being present and kind of being awful to people in the process, where it's like, well, this isn't part of my plan, so I'm not gonna, I don't know. I keep, like, every time I go on Instagram, when I got this card reading done, you know, stuff that comes up on TV over and over again is this message of trusting the process. And I'll get to in a second what I mean by saying the process. So another message, or the same message, but a different way that it got delivered, is that today I was talking to my friend Megan, I love you, and she had said change is happening whether we like it or not. I don't know if other people with curly hair, especially short curly hair, can attest to this, but sometimes these curls be sticking straight out and looking like antenna, and I don't really like it, and I keep seeing the vent and thinking that it's like a misplaced piece of hair, you know what I mean? So What I'm trying to get across in this video is that what I'm learning about turning 25 is that there's a discrepancy between the vision that we have for ourselves once we hit an age, or, you know, once this thing happens and this thing can come next, that kind of thing. When there's a discrepancy between that and what's actually happening for us, it causes a whole bunch of bad feelings. And so as a birthday gift from me to you, I put together a playlist that I'll link below, or if you go to my channel, it should be the only public playlist that I have, because I don't want y'all seeing what I watch. It's a bunch of weird stuff. Like, whenever I talk to my friends about the stuff that I'm watching or reading, they're like yesterday I was reading the biography of the person that created SpongeBob. Very cool person. Anyways, as a gift from me to you, and because I don't want to repeat what other people have already made videos about, I've put together a playlist, and all of the videos in one way or another center around this feeling of being behind in life, or what the process of being alive is. You know, when I was younger and constantly wanting to be older, I was always frustrated of like, I'm not independent, I don't have freedom like I wish I did, that kind of thing. But also kind of wondered to myself, like, if you're not in school, what are you striving for? You know? And I would always just think to myself, like, what do adults do? Like, it seems like my parents just go to work every day and then come home and take care of me and then do it again. And now I'm realizing that what adulthood is that process of having a challenge come up, facing that challenge, and then a new challenge appearing. And that's taken directly from Naki Nardi's video. And then Evelyn from Evelyn on the internet, her video, first of all, from like a composition standpoint, is just really cool. Like, one of the videos I'll do in the future is about like writing and my favorite types of writing and philosophy about writing and media, because I don't see them as different. So in that video, she is talking about life being a race and is literally running. But in that regard, I think that that's a useful metaphor for the process of life, right? That life is a race, but you know you don't actually get to the finish line ever. Like, the finish line is you're not alive anymore. And so how do you enjoy the running? How do you appreciate the scenery? And you know, the reason for the disclaimer in the beginning is that I've found it increasingly difficult to enjoy the process, or to set goals without having expectations, because I do have depression. And in the past year, for a lot of it, because of medical issues I was having, was just in a really low place. And so, and I've written about this before, especially relating to my birthday and aging, is that it's hard to, on the one hand, it's hard to have a vision for your future if you don't envision a future. And on the other hand, there's a kind of freedom because you're not bound to those expectations. So I will say that in a lot of videos that I watch about getting older or about feeling behind in life, I've noticed a lot of folks talk about, well, I thought I would be married by now. You know, it took me longer to finish my degree than I thought, or I don't have a degree and I want to, or, you know, I'm not hitting milestones as fast as my friends. And I don't feel like that's applicable in my case. And that's why I talked earlier about, you know, the years between graduating college and now, is that I was on a sprint to acquire things, to meet these milestones, these expectations that I had, and have them. And now I'm like, some of these things I don't want, you know, or I'm grateful for them, but some of them I didn't realize the level of responsibility that they came with, like living away from home. Like if I mess up, I can go home, but it's a different type of pressure. In the past year, have really just had to ask myself, what is it that I actually want? You know, what do I want to feel on an everyday basis? And I've had to learn that because I was able to check off a lot of different boxes, and what I feel like is meet a lot of goals that I feel like personally are metrics of success. And I've realized that a lot of my feelings about myself have been tied to this idea of being a successful person, right? So whether that's been seeing myself as Jeff's partner and feeling successful that we've made our relationship work, or what's going on right now, which is putting a lot of myself, and not just effort, but literally my sense of personal value and what I bring to the world, putting a lot of that into a job. And then if I'm not working, what's left? And that's what I mean also when I say the process, is that life, I'm learning, is not just about the acquisition of things. And having things does help, right? And that was another thing that came up in my reading, is that stability is very important to me. It always has been. You know, having a place to stay, having a car, if that's something that I personally need. You know, having money in the bank, having food in the fridge, those are things that I feel like aren't to be acquired. They're just basic needs. But what I mean is not just seeing, for me, I've had to learn not just to see life as like a progression of like, okay, I hit this milestone, so that means I should be getting a promotion. Or I hit this milestone, so that means the next car I get needs to be nicer, or whatever it is. And that said, I think a lot of the time when we have these expectations for what we should be doing by a certain age, it's because we're basing them off of other people, if not comparing ourselves. As I mentioned, I do have a lot of siblings, and most of them are older than me. And so I've been fortunate to see all the different ways that life can look for people at a certain age, or just in general, really. And so I feel like that in mind, I don't feel like I compare myself to other people or am necessarily jealous of other people. Jealousy is like natural and normal, so I feel it sometimes, but I don't have the experience of going through social media and feeling like, oh, I want what that person has. My problem is that I have this idealized version of myself that I don't even know where it came from. I don't know what I'm trying to accomplish by having it. But whenever something happens that doesn't align with that, that is a depressive episode in and of itself, because it's like, why am I not here by now? You know, oh my God, I'm gonna lose all of the things that I've sought to acquire. Stuff like that. So I definitely recommend watching the videos that I made, not because I put them together, but because I think they, as a package, really sum up what has been on my mind lately. And what I hope to bring into being 25 for myself is just this total relinquishing of control. This is something that has been an ongoing theme, because as I mentioned, I have this death grip over my sense of self. But in terms of being 25 and it being 2020, as I mentioned, I've changed a lot in the past year. And it's not even so much about, as I mentioned, this passive internal process of, okay, how do I become friends with this new person that I am? It's about how do I accept all of the things externally that are happening. As I mentioned, things fall apart, things change, and it's not up to us that if they're going to or not, because they're going to.
Or am I gonna,
am I going to make change a welcome guest in my life and just accept it, embrace it, be okay with it? Or am I going to have this death grip and feel like it's up to me to change every single aspect of my life, and if things don't go according to plan, then they're totally falling apart? One thing that I wrote down, first of all, I mentioned this a little bit in the last video, but it's so important to know what makes you feel good when you're in a bad place. And I know for myself, I don't do those things, but what makes me feel best is literally documenting my experience, because the process of having to package up feelings gives me clarity about them. So I've been, and I haven't been enough, but I need to start just writing down how I feel. And so, something that I wrote down earlier today in preparation for this video is that I'm reluctantly shedding a plan for my future and attachment to milestones. I think, again, I didn't really have this feeling of, well, I want what this person that I know has, because I think in a lot of ways it's so important to me to hit milestones that a lot of the time when comparing myself to others, I tend to be like ahead. So to feel like, well, I need to be in this kind of relationship, I need to be engaged by this point, it's not because, oh, well, other people were. It's because I want to be the first. A breakthrough. I in writing out different stuff that I'm reluctantly shedding, have just realized that death grip, it's not helping in any kind of way. And it's hard. It's hard to relinquish control, especially having been in situations where, me being in control of myself or my circumstances was a matter of survival. It's really hard to just let life happen, and I'm deeply afraid of just letting go and letting life take its course. And then what if I get depressed again? Or, what if I feel worse before I feel better? And in the past year, I've felt so low so many times that it's hard to think like, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep going. So I also bring up social media, and I could have prefaced with this, but I bring up social media because I know a lot of us use it. All of us use it. And a lot of us use it to see the highs and lows in people's lives. And a lot of the time in these conversations about feeling like you're behind in life and trusting the process and stuff, people talk about comparison being the thief of joy, and that when you use social media, you're only seeing people's highlight reel. And it's always been important to me on my website, through my writing, through pieces that I've done for other publications, and now on this YouTube channel, to not just show my highlights, to not just show the low points, and not make my life into a quasi-reality TV show, but to just show that shit happens. And even in making the playlist, it made me realize, oh, a lot of people feel how I feel. you know? And so I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If there's something about it that you can empathize with, you know, I'm very grateful for that, and I'm grateful to you for watching. And I'll keep this month making content related to my birthday and turning 25 because I do love my birthday. If you have a birthday coming up, let me know. And I hope to see you in my next video. Wait, turn off. Oh, okay. Wait, also one more thing. In my last video, I talked about getting a facial. It actually made a really big difference. So, if you can do it, do it. A lot of places have coupons for stuff. It was definitely worth it. Okay, I'm being weird. All right.